and welcome back to Bookish Brits. My name is Michelle and I'm filming this video at the end of May. Just this second I've decided that I want to do monthly wrap-ups on this channel, but of course before I can get to May, the month that we're in, I really wanted to update you on the books that I've been reading from January to April as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to film a bunch of these in a row, edit them, and hopefully upload them one a week until I'm caught up, and hopefully it won't take too long for me to get up to date. So I've gone through my Goodreads and I've realized that in January I read 15 books. Not bad, especially because of how reading had been gone in the past. I'm only going to talk to you in a little bit about 10 of the books because 5 of the books I've already discussed in other channels, but hopefully I'll do a little link there if you want to hear more about them. Okay, so for the first 2 books that I read at the beginning of the year, it was Tender and Damage by Eve Ainsworth, and later on in the month I also read Because of You. All 3 of those books by Eve Ainsworth, I did a video on them specifically, so there should be a link, I guess. Really enjoyed all 3 of those books. Eve Ainsworth is a UK YA writer, and a lot of her books deal with I'm trying not to say the word issues, and I think I struggled in that video as well, but they are kind of issue-based books told in a light, relatable way. I really enjoyed all those books. So that was Tender, Damage, and Because of You. Next up I read Dear Martin by Nick Stone. I don't remember the reason that this book came to my attention, but it's about a teenage boy in America. He's black, and he starts writing letters to Martin Luther King Jr. Discussing I don't know, the relations, I guess, how black people are treated in America, and the letters are to explore how much progress has been made in America since Martin Luther King Jr. Worked so hard during the Civil Rights Movement. It was a really interesting story. So the next book that I read was I Call Myself a Feminist. This was a essay collection of different writers about what feminism means to them, why they use the word feminist. It was interesting. I think that I could relate to a lot of the essays themselves, and it's definitely an important topic. Feminism is still something that's hugely important, and I guess will always be important until there's equality between sexes. So I think that I'll be reading more feminist literature as the year goes on. I have quite a lot on my Kindle to read, but it always just seems to be put to the back burner. But yes, so that was the next book that I wanted to talk to you about. I also read Letting Go by Cat Clarke. This is a Barrington Stoke book. Cat Clarke is definitely one of my favorite authors. This is about a girl who promised her now ex-girlfriend that she would do this like really emotional thing with her. So they're walking up a mountain in order to scatter her the ex-girlfriend's mum's ashes, which is a really emotional thing to do anyway, but now the main character has to do this with her ex-girlfriend and her ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend, so that makes it all kinds of awkward. Next up I read The Fallen Children by David Owen. This came out several years ago and it was really, really weird, I think is the best way I can describe it. I didn't really know what I was getting into when I started it. I knew that it was a retelling or like an interpretation maybe of another book, which turns out to be The Midwich Cuckoos, by John Wyndham, I think. I'm not really familiar with that story, so I have no idea what the comparison is between The Fallen Children and The Midwich Cuckoos. There was also a film based about it, Children of the Corn. Again, I'm coming into this hugely blind. So The Fallen Children was about this event that occurs, and once it just occurs on this one housing estate, and at the end of it, it turns out that 4 people, teenagers mostly, end up pregnant with these, and the pregnancies are a little bit weird. So next up, I read White Eagles and Firebird by Elizabeth Wein. I'm not going to talk about this in too much detail in this video because it's the other 2 books that I've read. I've reviewed in another video, so I'll leave that link somewhere there. Really, really enjoyable. They're 2 Barrington Stoke books about women pilots during World War II. Really, really enjoyable. Absolutely loved both of them. Highly recommend them. Next up, I read Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This is a book that I'd heard really, really amazing things about. I think I had an excerpt of it that I was given at Yelk a while back. The illustrations in it were absolutely stunning. I took this book out from my library, really, really loved it. Again, I didn't know that much about it. I knew that it was about a boy dealing with gun violence, but I didn't realize the actual structure of the book. Like, I know it was told in verse, but I didn't realize the entire story is about our main character who is traveling down in the lift in his building, and the fact that he meets people from his life, and that's how the story is told. I think the ending has left a bit of the reader's own interpretation, and that was the only thing about it that left me feeling a little like, but on the whole, really, really loved it. It was such a great story. I keep looking down because I'm looking at my list here, but maybe I'll try to put it up here so I don't keep like staring down. Next up, I have Jack of Hearts and Other Parts by Elsie Rosen. This was such a fun book. It was really, really fun. In this, our main character, Jack, is an openly gay character, and what he ends up doing is writing a advice column, so about like sex and love and relationships, and he really gets into his own experiences with just his own experiences. He's definitely somebody who likes sex and has a lot of experiences to discuss. I really loved that about this book. It was I don't know, I don't see that much like explicit sex scenes for LGBT characters, so that type of thing, it's always like a nice surprise, and especially something like Jack of Hearts, which is so sex positive as well. Next up, I read More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera. This was his first book, I believe. I have read another book by him, History Is All You Left Me, which absolutely tore my heart out. So I kind of had this expectation that this would be a very emotional book, but I didn't again, like, I'm in January, I was mostly reading books that I didn't really know that much about, so January was just like, surprise! And this one was a surprise. I'd heard that it was like, what's the name of that film with Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet? Oh, I'm not going to be able to remember until like the second I turn this video off. But I heard it had like that kind of vibe to it. But didn't love the ending, not gonna lie, but everything else about it was really, really engaging and interesting, and I couldn't wait to read more until that ending, and I just thought, really? Then I read How to Own the Room by Viv Groskop. Not sure how I came to read that one, but it's about public speaking and how using the different techniques, I guess, of women who are not like type A personalities can still use their own personalities and speaking styles in order to captivate an audience, even if it's not like a TED talk. It could just be like a business meeting or something. It was interesting. I don't have a lot of thoughts about it. Next up, I read Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. This was suggested by the book club that I joined in January. It was my first taste of Sally Rooney and I loved it. Loved it. Nobody else in the book club really enjoyed it, I don't think, but I think that Sally Rooney is a genius. So that's that. And the final book I wanted to talk to you about, the books I read in January, is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. And I feel like I don't really have that much more to say about it that anyone else hasn't already said, which is, holy shit, that book is good. I can't wait for the sequel. Loved everything about it. Yeah, and I want more. So that's it. So there you have it, the 15 books that I read in January. Look out for February, March, and April coming soon. I would say out of that, those 15 books, my favorite was probably, I want to say Conversations with Friends, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, White Eagles, and Jack of Hearts, I'd say, among all of those, which, like, it doesn't really narrow it down that much. That's a lot of books there, and that's a lot of favorites of the month, but what are you gonna do? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like or subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you again next time.